Good Monday morning, everybody. This is Noah, one of the educators with Shortcuts. We will be presenting our Monday morning classroom session on Shortcuts reports in just a moment. I know that there's a few stragglers that are joining in at the very last second, probably getting coffee, so we're going to pause for just a second and then we're going to begin our Monday morning classroom session on Shortcuts reports. So get your pens, get your pencils, and refresh your coffee if you have to, and we'll get started in just a moment. Okay, we're ready to begin this session. So again, my name is Noah. I'm one of the educators with Shortcuts, and on this Monday classroom session, we're going to be talking about Shortcuts reports. So if you're new to Shortcuts, or if it's been a while since you were trained, or even if you're just trying to learn some additional features in Shortcuts, don't forget to sign up for our presentations every Monday. We cover a number of basic features in Shortcuts that everybody should absolutely be aware of. So today is one of the, of course, most important things. So similar to our other presentations, this webinar is about 30 minutes. My microphone, of course, is on. We are recording this session. If you're unable to attend or if you have to leave early, don't worry. We will record and upload and send you the link a little bit later today. So we will make some time at the very end of the presentation in case you have questions on certain reports or other questions that might have come up. So what's the focus on today? So we're looking at reports and shortcuts. You should know some of the basics. And then we're going to highlight a few key reports. Things like the trading summary, future appointments, top selling products and services, employee performance, and of course, client retention. Now, in shortcuts, there's well over 100 different reports that you may run. Now, some of these reports you may only use once a year. Perhaps you need a report on taxes, or if you're working on marketing, you want to find out what types of customers you had that visited you throughout the year. So some of these reports are very specific. Some of them are seasonal, some of them are quarterly, and I think somebody actually has a question already. Oh, let me take a look. Hold on just a moment. Okay, so sorry, I thought somebody had a question. It was something else. So let's go back to this. So again, some of the reports you may only run quarterly or monthly or just once a year. So we're going to focus on the ones that you should be running a little bit more frequently. And what exactly is the information that you're looking for? So let's talk about the basics of shortcuts reporting. So when you go to your report screen, we've got, of course, a number of different categories. As soon as you select any particular report, you're going to get a description of what's contained in that report. And when you press the View button, you get to choose a specific day or a specific date range in which to run your report. So since we have well over 100 reports, we don't expect you to memorize all of them. That's why we have our descriptions. So as soon as you select one from the list, on the right side of the screen, we'll give you a description. And in some cases, we might even mention how is this report put together. So that's a very basic step. Look at your reports, look at your descriptions, and then choose for what period you would like to run it. Now, once you select a report, if you look at the left side of the screen before you press View to view the specific data range, you might have some additional options. The ability to choose for which employee am I looking at this report for, or miscellaneous settings. Some of these reports have one or the other of these options, either employees or miscellaneous. Not every report is going to have every possible option. So some reports will let you show or hide tax information, give you a breakdown on services or products. And if you have a question on how does Shortcuts calculate certain numbers, in the case of some of the reports, there is something that says show report definitions. So we will actually give you what is the formula that Shortcuts is using to calculate a certain number. So as you start to go through these, if you ever wonder, okay, how did Shortcuts get to my attendance or my productivity? So that is how we'll be able to tell. Okay, I think somebody did have a question. Monica, did you have a question? I saw that the hand go up on the left side of the screen. If you have any questions, when you're using the program, the webinar program, there should be a chat or a question window on the right side that allows you to type in a quick question. So, okay. And of course, if you can wait until the end of the presentation, we can also review it then. Okay, so let's continue. So you should know how to search for certain reports, how to try to get detailed information, or select certain reports when you just need to see the performance or the numbers for a certain employee. So what's one of the most important reports that you should know about? For any business, the trading summary is historically the most important one-page summary or snapshot of how your business performed that day. So it doesn't matter if you're a salon, a spa, or a barber shop, this is going to give you all of the numbers for that day. So to find that report, you're going to go to Tools, Reports, End of Day. So this is an end of day category report, Trading Summary. Now by default, when you choose the trading summary and you choose any report and you press the view button, by default, Shortcuts will show you the information as of that specific day. So if I were to click on my trading summary for tonight, then Shortcuts will say, okay, this is Monday night's report for everything that happened. So for the trading summary, if you have a manager or a receptionist that closes out your register each night, as they're taking the money out for the deposit that night, you may ask them to print you a trading summary, just so you have a hard copy of everything that happened. So what's the important information in the trading summary? So again, all of your important numbers are in here. How many customers came in? Were they a certain gender, male or female? So you have a sense as to how many customers are actually coming in and of which type. How many had appointments? How many were new? How many were walk-in? What was your retail? Did you do any refunds? How did your staff perform that day? What were their total sales numbers? What were their averages? How many hours did that work for that day or that week whenever you decide to run that report? And again, all of this information is contained on one screen on one piece of paper. So you can see why the trading summary is very important. So this is always available to you. So that is why it's primarily the most important report in Shortcuts. Now, if you have cloud reporting, this is one of the reports that's also available on the cloud. So you don't have to be at the salon or the spa or the shop. You can just view this information online. And I think somebody raised their hand again. And it still says Monica has a question, but I wonder if it's sorry for pausing. I wonder if it's a false thing why it says that somebody has a question. Okay, so the other report that would be very important, very beneficial to you is the value of future appointments. So again, it's under Tools Reports. This one is under the Appointment category, and it's Value of Future Appointments. So for this report, unlike the trading summary, you do not need to run it every day. This is one that If you want to analyze the upcoming week or the upcoming month, that is the period that you're selecting. So what is important in that particular report? What are the numbers that you're looking for? So for your particular salon, if you need to look at what the future appointments are for individual staff members, you'll actually get a breakdown of them, what the value is estimated for each of these appointments. So of course, this is the value of the appointment just on services. We're not even taking any potential retail into consideration. So you can tell right away, are certain staff members hitting a target for what you'd like to see as them having future appointments for the next month? Is it 5%? Is it 10%? Would it be great if your staff had 20% or more of appointments scheduled for the next month? And if you need to see a detailed breakdown of what are the particular services that are booked ahead of time, on the reporting screen, where you get a bar graph as to what is the dollar average or the dollar value that your staff gets, if you double click on any one of those bars, Shortcuts will actually open a second window that shows you a detailed breakdown. When's the appointment scheduled for? What's the service and who's performing it? So you can absolutely find out what are your most important, what are your hottest selling services at this location. So value of future appointments. If you want to investigate the next week or the next month, this would be a very good report to start with. So the next most important report. So in the value of future appointments, so these are the particular columns. On the left side is your percentage. What is your hard percentage of appointments that your staff has? What is the total value of those appointments? On the right side, a bar graph that sort of ranks how every staff member is doing with future appointments. And then at the bottom, your total for your business. What is the value for all future appointments for that particular period of time? In this case, we're looking at an entire month. So we get to see how everybody's upcoming appointments and how important those appointments are for the business. So if it's sometimes a hard concept to grasp for your employees, why it's important that you want to make sure that while the customer's in the chair, they schedule their next visit, or for the receptionist, your front desk staff, to always be considerate and ask, would you like to book your next appointment as long as you're here? So every one of those reminders, every one of those casual conversations, those touch points for your customers is a chance to ensure that next month or next week, we always have your staff booked. All right, I'm gonna check the chat window. I don't think I have any questions so far. No, no questions so far. Okay, so let's continue. So we know how the business does on a day-to-day basis. That's your trading summary. We know how your staff and how your business is going to do based on future appointments. But what about your retail? So one of the most important reports is your top selling products. So the location of this report under Tools Reports, this is under the stock category. Now, there is a similar report if you want to find out what employees did in terms of retail, that would be under the employees report. But in this case, we just want to look at your overall product, your overall inventory, and see what really are the best selling items. So we're going to go to the stock category, and the particular report are your top selling products. So if you want to look at June's numbers, July's numbers, and see what were the best things. So you always want to run it for the month that just passed. So of course, what's in this report? What are we looking at? So it's a very clean, very easy to read breakdown based on who your manufacturers are, what are the specific products, and how many did you sell during that period? What was the value of the sales? And of course, what was your profit for each particular item? So of course, if you have staff members or front desk that like to give clients discounts for certain products, that's going to start cutting into some of these numbers. So just, keep it in mind as you're going through this. You notice, well, I do have a hot selling item, but somebody on my staff keeps discounting this, and I could potentially be losing some money if they give away too many discounts. So always run this for the month that just passed and just investigate. What are your top products? So if you have a sense as to how your retail is doing, then you also want to analyze how are your services. So not necessarily for the employees, but as the business. What really are your top selling services? And if you discover there was a change in your demographics, it was subtle, you almost missed it, but perhaps you started getting more male clients that came in, perhaps to get some camo color, or perhaps to do beard services. So you start to notice, hey, some men's services are starting to creep into my top selling services. So you may need to adjust your service menu so that you can accommodate this slight shift in demographics. But to analyze all of your services, same as your inventory, you want to take a look at last month. What were your hottest selling services for the month before? And again, it's a very clean, very easy to read report, just like your retail. On the left side, the specific service categories. In the middle of the column, what are the specific services we're looking at? How many were sold during that period, and what was the value? So of course, you can possibly have one or two color services that you performed during that period, but of course, you charged much more to do that. So it will show up on the report as opposed to a dozen or 2 dozen haircuts that didn't necessarily charge as much for. So this gives you a good sense as to what should your business be focused on, and of course, what can you have your staff try to do more upsells on. So again, this is just your service totals, not necessarily for any employee, but for the entire business. So top selling retail, top selling services, a good sense to know what should you start focusing on. So for your staff, if you wanted to get the numbers to see how your staff is doing, probably the most important report that you can run is your employee performance summary. So the trading summary is good to get a sense as to how the business performed, but for your staff breakdowns, look at the employee performance summary. So we've got a number of columns. Some of the things to look at are, what was the retail that your staff did? What was the service that your staff did? What about sundry that they might have generated? Sundry is any income for your business that's not necessarily a product or a service. It's just an additional something that your salon would charge for. A gift certificate, for example, technically that would count as a sundry. So in addition to giving you totals for those 3 categories, Shortcuts will also give you what was the average. So what was the average client amount? What were their client totals for that period of time, whether it was for the past week or the past month? And of course, what was any series redemption, any gift certificate redemptions, totals like that. So if you want to see how the staff is working out, run the employee performance summary. It is located under Tools, Reports, Employees, and it's called the Performance Summary. Now, there are 2 different versions of the Performance Summary. This is the standard one. There's also something called Performance Summary Extended, which gives you an even further breakdown, a more detailed breakdown for each staff member, including what were their conversion ratios for service to retail, for example. So the extended one, Tools, Reports, Employee, that's the path. and employee performance extended. So how does this differ than the regular employee performance report? So the particular period of time we want to look at is the month prior. So you see, this report, instead of just having the hard totals and the averages for your staff, it gives you a complete breakdown of everything that happened. What were their service totals? What were their averages? What were their retail totals? What were their retail averages? When they're combined, what are their totals? What are their averages? What is the percentage that their services are being, or their customers are being converted to retail numbers? And what are the specific services that they're doing, that they're performing, and what are their totals? And again, averages. So to get a sense as to how productive your employees are, what is their average client spend ratio or service to retail upsell and rebooking percentages. When you want to look at a more in-depth report for how the staff is performing, that's when you go to the employee performance extended report. All right. So two different reports, and I'll jump back. The performance summary is a simple one-page report that just gives you the hard totals and averages. And then the extended version, which does a lot of different calculations for the same period of time. So by now, you get a sense as to how the business does on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. You know how your staff is performing for any retail, any service dollars that they did in the past month. But moving forwards, how well do you know if your staff is really retaining their customers? So you want to analyze a period of time. So the best report to run is your client retention report. Like the previous two reports, this is under your employee category. So when you want to run it, there's a particular step that you have to do. And we'll go back and take a look at it. So this report, it'll show you for the salon totals, the staff totals, how many customers did they see during a certain period of time? And of those customers, how many returned over the last 3 months? How many of those customers stayed with the same staff member or moved to a different employee? So how many were retained by the staff or by the business, and how many were lost? So this number is constantly going to be fluctuating because there's a number of variables. And I'll actually pause the presentation here and show you in shortcuts the specific steps, because this is something that sometimes trips up some of the customers that we work with. They'll run the client retention report and shortcuts will say you have 0% retention. And of course, people will say, well, that's impossible because I just saw one of my regular customers last week. How can I have 0% retention? Chances are they are not running the correct period for this report. So let's take a look. And we're going to go here. And this is not a future report. This is our retention. So client retention, we're under the employees category, client retention. So remember, Shortcuts wants to look at the last 90 days or the last 3 months worth of customers that returned. Hold on a moment, let me minimize this window. So when I go to view this report and I go to choose what is the date range that I'd like to investigate. So the mistake that people do is they say, okay, I want to look at July and I want to see how many people from July 1st through July 31st have visited me or have returned in the past week. And if I press view, Shortcuts is going to say nobody visited you. And so that's where people get confused. So let's run that correctly. So I need to choose a group of customers from a certain period, a certain quarter, and then Shortcuts is going to calculate how many of those people have visited me in the last 3 months. So the starter date range that I choose has to be before 3 months from now. So, for example, the best way to think about it, since we're in August, I want to find out how many of the customers from spring actually returned to the business this summer. So I can say from January 1st through March 31st, for example. So a little bit of winter and a little bit of spring. So for that 3 month period, how many of those customers have visited me within the past 3 months? So I hope that makes a little bit more sense. If I were to just say from January 1st through January 31st, then Shortcuts is going to find out all of the customers that visited me in that month, how many of those have visited me in the past 3 months. So that number is going to be different if I choose 2 months to analyze, 3 months to analyze, 4 months to analyze. So however big the period is, just remember, make sure that you don't overlap it with the most recent 3 months, because Shortcuts is going to say, well, wait a minute, if somebody visit you on July 15th, then they might not have enough time to visit you again before, in this case, August 12th. So always choose a period of time that's well before then. And then you're going to start to see how is your actual retention holding up. So just keep that in mind. Make sure you select the correct time period to analyze. And if you still have questions on this, you can of course reach out to us and we'll try to find a different way to explain it to you. Right? So those are your big reports. Again, Shortcuts has well over 100 different reports that you can run, but we just highlighted the most important reports for your business. So we want you to focus on your trading summary, your client retention report, for your staff members, your employee performance summary, both the regular employee performance and the extended employee performance. Look at your rebooking breakdown, top selling products, top selling services. If you're a salon or a spa that actually uses discounts, find out what are your most popular discounts and even which staff members are giving those out. Look at your value of future appointments. Look at your referral breakdown, service breakdown, and of course, product sales summary. So of all the reports, if you're new to Shortcuts, if you're trying to figure out how your business is performing, these are the reports we would advise you focusing on for now. And then once you start to see a trend, once you start to see certain numbers, you can investigate further by using our other reports. Again, some of our reports are important for tax purposes, some are important when you're doing marketing, and there is the potential that you may not use certain reports. Class attendance, for example. Shortcut software is used in a number of academies. And if you're not teaching any classes in your salon or your barbershop or your spa, then that's probably a report you're never going to use. So focus on these for now, and they should help you make sure that your business is performing as well as it could be. So now we're opening up the floor. If you have any questions on anything we've talked about, or certain reports, or how to run certain reports, now's your chance to ask. On the right side of the screen, you should have a chat window, a question window, so you can go ahead and fill it in, and I'll take a look at it. And let's see, has anybody have any questions? I'll give you a few moments. Nothing so far. Julieta, do you have a question? On the right side, go ahead and type in your question. Hopefully you see the toolbar. Oh, here we are. How does this apply to rental stations that are using booking? So if you have staff members and your business uses online booking, so are you thinking of should they have permission to look at reports, or how does the business give this information to certain staff members? So let's see. Well, for online booking, the rebooking report will include information for staff members that happen to get their customers to book their next appointment while they were in the chair, or if customers made an appointment online, that will be reflected in the reports. Now, whether or not you want to have them have the permission to look at some of these reports, that can potentially be assigned to them based on security. But just remember, if you give staff permission to look at some reports, you cannot block them from looking at the numbers for their other coworkers. So turning on the security switch for a report, it's sort of an all or nothing. They can look at a particular report, but they can also look at like business numbers in that report. Paula's question. Extended employees report. It takes a while for the extended employee report to happen. Is that normal? Paula, that depends on the period of time that you're running. If you have a really big database, a lot of customers, a large staff, and you're looking at your last month, it may take a moment or two. It shouldn't take several minutes unless you decide to run it for the first quarter or for an entire year. Then it's going to start eating up the resources, the memory on your system, and it may potentially take a couple of minutes. So there's a couple of variables there. One of the things that might speed up your database is if you ever go to exit shortcuts, you may be prompted by a pop-up window that says, would you like to run some maintenance right now? So this is shortcuts just trying to speed up your database, trying to optimize it. Make sure you run that when you can. If possible, restart your system every couple of weeks. And when you go to exit shortcuts and it prompts you to run that, go ahead and run your maintenance. And if it's still running slowly, let the help desk know there might be something else happening. Let's see. Julieta, we don't charge for their services. So if you're not running, so Julieta, the question for you. So you're probably just using shortcuts just to organize the schedules, the appointments for the booth renters, the chair renters, but they're taking the payments directly in their chairs, not necessarily through shortcuts. So shortcuts in this scenario wouldn't necessarily give you hard numbers for the business because shortcuts isn't recording any information. So shortcuts can only report back what it records. And if there's no transactions going through, no retail, nothing like that, then there's really nothing for shortcuts to show you except for how many customers are actually booking their next appointments. Potentially, what is the value of that appointment? So it will at the very least give you a head count on the types of customers, what is the value that they're doing, but not necessarily a report that would be important for the employees, because a portion of whatever they're making, of course, they're paying directly to the shop or the salon in terms of rent. So it's a tricky one when shortcuts in this scenario is being used a little bit more for rentals rather than for the salon directly. But if you have other questions or other potential reports, do let us know. All right. Are there any other questions that might have come up? Sylvie, do you have a question? Or Johnny, you have a question? And I'll check the chat window just in case you're posting it on chat and not in the question window. Okay, I think we've answered those questions, but if you think of anything else, oh, Sylvie was just looking for the place to type her question. Okay, Sylvie, you got a moment to ask your question. And just remember, after today's presentation, if you think of any questions with regards to reports or you think of anything else, do reach out to us. You can contact your customer care rep. You can reach us on Facebook. You can reach our number. I'll put all that information up in just a moment. And you can also email us and we will take a look at it and we will get back to you. All right, I have a feeling that Sylvie is typing in a really long question. There we go. Okay, so Sylvie's question, in order to get the rebooking info, we need to ensure we are adding that info when checking out a client. However, if we forget to add it at that time, what do we do? So that's a good question. If you want to incentivize or make sure that your employees, your front desk are getting those customers to rebook, I'll exit out of shortcuts for a moment. So there's a few ways to help track that. One of the ways to help track that is when you go to setup configuration, there's a couple of reminders we can turn on to make sure the staff gets credit or ask the question. Under setup configuration, on the left side of the screen, if we go to sales, right at the point of sale, as the customer is checking out, once they pay, there is a question in the first column, ask to rebook. So right away, shortcuts will say, would you like to book your next appointment, and allow the staff to go right into the schedule, right into the calendar. That's one place. Under general appointment book, there's two other ways to sort of remind the customers, remind the staff. Ask if the employee requested the appointment. So if certain staff members get points or get credit, or you want shortcuts to track how many employees are getting customers to make appointments while they're there, you'll be prompted right on the appointment book. And if an appointment is rebooked, so as the customer is checking out, they make a future appointment, should shortcut say, okay, which employee is getting credit for this? And you can choose that particular employee's name. So those are two other reminders that you can turn on. Now, for Sylvie's question, if somebody did book their next appointment, but they forgot to give that certain employee credit, so there is a way to actually tell shortcuts, hey, this was a rebooking, somebody needs to get credit for it. When that appointment is made, and I'll go to next week, and I'll put in an appointment for next week. So this person is getting a color. So once that appointment is on the books, if you forgot to do it as they were checking out, you can right click on that appointment and you can go to extra and set rebookings. So this is how shortcuts will know, okay, this was a rebooking, this employee should get credit for this. So hopefully your staff doesn't forget, but they can always make sure that the right people get tagged for that. Right. I think that answers the question. All right. Are there any other questions? Let's go back to our list. All right, Paula has a question. When someone is already rescheduled for the next 3 appointments, what is the step for those to get put in the report? So if somebody were booked already ahead of time, those appointments, those values are going to be in the value of future appointments report. There isn't necessarily anything that you would have to change. But if somebody were to be getting credit for that, similar to Sylvie's question, if you right click and if you just had manually made future appointments for somebody, again, if you right click, go to extra and set your rebooking for that. So that makes sure that Shortcuts knows to tag it for that employee. Okay, let's see. Are there any other questions? Okay. I think we've got answers for that. If you think of anything after this presentation, and again, if you think of anything that might have come up that I didn't quite get to, go ahead and contact us. You can reach out to us on Facebook, you can reach out to us on customer care, or give us a call, and we will look at your question and get back to you. So of course, give us a call, send us an email, and of course, I look forward to seeing most of you on our next Monday classroom session. All right, as with our other presentations, we are recording and we will be sending everybody a link a little bit later. Thank you for attending, and I look forward to seeing you again. Have a great rest of the day.